The sun was rising over the small city of General Santos in the Philippines, painting the sky with orange hues that reflected on the waters of Sarangani Bay. Manny Pacquiao observed the familiar landscape through the window of his luxurious pickup truck, feeling a mixture of nostalgia and gratitude as he approached the neighborhood where he grew up. The narrow streets and simple houses brought back memories of a childhood marked by extreme poverty, but also by the unconditional love of his mother, Dionysia, and the valuable teachings of his teachers. Dressed simply, wearing just a light blue shirt and dark pants, Manny tried to go unnoticed, though he knew it was practically impossible. His team had organized the visit with discretion, but the curious glances and smiles from residents who recognized him along the way confirmed that news of his presence was already spreading like wildfire. He had decided to visit his old elementary school, Saavedra Elementary School, a place that held precious memories of his formative years and where one teacher in particular had changed his life. In the distance, Manny spotted the modest concrete building painted in faded yellow, with the small courtyard where he used to play with friends during breaks. It was a simple building, very different from the elite institutions his own children now attended, but for Manny, those walls contained the foundation of everything he had achieved. He came with a special purpose: to reconnect with teacher Imelda Reyes, the woman who had believed in his potential when not even he could see it. Manny's heart raced at the thought of the reunion. It had been almost 30 years since he had frequented those rooms as a skinny, shy boy, dreaming of helping his family escape poverty. Now he was returning as a global icon, champion in 8 different boxing categories, Senator of the Republic of the Philippines, and philanthropist. But beneath all these titles still beat the heart of that same boy who yearned for the approval of his dear teacher, Mrs. Reyes, who had never given up on him even when he missed classes to sell cigarettes on the streets and help support his family. In a small house on the outskirts of General Santos, teacher Imelda Reyes, now 73 years old, was carefully arranging her few belongings. Her fragile, curved body carried the weight of years dedicated to education, and her eyes, though tired, still shone with the same passion for teaching that had characterized her throughout her life. Retired for more than a decade, Imelda lived modestly on her small pension, sharing the space with her niece Ligaya and her son, little Datu, who was 8 years old. The simple walls of the living room proudly displayed newspaper clippings and some photographs documenting the achievements of her former students. In a special place, she lovingly kept a yellowed photograph of a class from 1984, where a small boy with a determined look stood out. Even though he tried to hide in the back of the image, it was Manny, her most famous student. Although Imelda treated the achievements of all her students with the same value and admiration, she followed Pacquiao's career through newspapers and television like someone following the trajectory of a son, feeling silent pride with each victory, praying with each defeat. That morning, Imelda had been invited to a special celebration at Saavedra Elementary School without further explanation. The current principal, Amihan Santos, had called personally, insisting that her presence was essential, but refusing to provide details about the event. Intrigued and a little apprehensive, the elderly teacher had chosen her best dress, a simple piece of floral cotton she kept for special occasions, and tied her white hair in a traditional bun. Time had not been kind to Imelda in recent years. Severe arthritis made her movements difficult, and heart problems forced her to take a series of expensive medications that consumed much of her modest pension. Recently, she had to abandon her cataract treatment due to lack of resources, and her vision was gradually deteriorating. Despite the difficulties, she maintained the dignity and optimism she had always transmitted to her students, repeating to herself that true wealth lay in the lives she had touched throughout her 40 years of teaching. At Saavedra Elementary School, a climate of controlled excitement took over the environment. Principal Amihan personally coordinated preparations for the illustrious visit, guiding staff who cleaned the central courtyard and discreetly decorated the auditorium with tropical flowers and the Philippine flag. Only a small group of people knew the true nature of the event, the surprise visit of Manny Pacquiao, the most illustrious son of that institution, who came not only as a celebrity, but to pay a special tribute to his former mentor. Behind the scenes, Manny's team worked with silent efficiency. Balikbayan, his personal assistant for more than 15 years, supervised the discreet delivery of equipment and gifts. Among them, a state-of-the-art motorized wheelchair, a lifetime health insurance policy, and documents for a new house in a quiet and safe neighborhood, all carefully selected after a discreet investigation into teacher Reyes's living conditions. More important, however, was a folder containing the construction project for a new library for the school, which would bear the educator's name. Meanwhile, a select group of former students from different generations arrived discreetly at the school. Some came from far away, like Maria Clara Pascual, now a doctor in Manila who had been inspired by the same teacher to pursue her dreams despite financial difficulties. Others were well-known figures in the community, such as the fisherman Ernesto Domingo, who attributed his thriving business to the lessons in perseverance learned from Mrs. Reyes. All brought flowers, cards, and small tokens, spontaneously joining this celebration of gratitude. In the city center, a cameraman from Pacquiao's foundation discreetly documented the preparations, capturing the authenticity of the feelings involved for a future social project that would encourage recognition of educators throughout the country. News of Manny's presence in the city had begun to spread, despite efforts at discretion, and small groups of fans were already forming near the school, hoping to glimpse their national hero. The plan was simple but meaningful, to provide a genuine reunion between the world champion and the teacher who never gave up on him, documenting not to exploit emotion, but to inspire a nation to value those who shape the future through education. Manny's vehicle advanced slowly along the dirt roads leading to the school. Each meter traveled awakening deep memories that made his heart tighten. He passed the small stall where he used to buy sweets with the few coins he managed to save, now transformed into a small grocery store, with his face displayed on energy drink posters in the window. He saw the improvised field where he had played his first basketball games, dreaming of becoming a famous athlete someday. A few meters from the school, he asked the driver to stop, wishing to make the rest of the journey on foot, feeling the soil of his childhood beneath his feet once more. As he walked, Manny was transported to the past. He vividly remembered the 9-year-old boy walking down that same road with bare feet and an empty stomach, carrying a worn notebook and a carefully sharpened pencil that needed to last the entire semester. He recalled the mornings when he arrived late, after helping his mother sell bread at dawn, and how teacher Reyes, instead of reprimanding him, discreetly placed a sandwich on his desk, pretending it was an item forgotten by another student. Those small gestures of compassion had planted in him the seed of generosity that now defined his philanthropic life. As he approached the school gates, Manny noticed the changes and continuities in the place. The main building remained the same, only with a new coat of paint and some structural renovations, many of them anonymously funded by himself over the years. The sports field that was once just a dirt ground now had a modest covered court, also the result of his silent donations. The children playing in the courtyard wore slightly better uniforms than in his time, but their faces reflected the same mixture of innocence and determination that he and his classmates had shown decades ago. For a moment, Manny hesitated at the entrance, feeling the weight of the responsibility of being a role model for those children. He remembered the words of teacher Reyes when he, at 12, announced that he needed to leave school to work full-time. "Manny, you have a special light inside you. No matter which path you choose, never forget to share that light with others." At that moment, standing in front of his old school, the world boxing champion, politician, and philanthropist felt like that vulnerable boy again, eager to show his mentor that he had kept that light burning and was now ready to give back everything she had given him. The auditorium of Saavedra Elementary School was silently filled with students, teachers, and former students, all holding their breath as teacher Imelda Reyes was gently led to the stage by Principal Amihan. The elderly educator walked with difficulty, supported by a worn cane, her half-closed eyes trying to adapt to the brightness of the environment. A simple chair had been positioned in the center of the stage, and Imelda sat down, confused, observing the smiling faces that stared at her with anticipation. She adjusted her old glasses on her nose, trying to understand the reason for so much commotion. At that moment, the doors at the back of the auditorium opened, and Manny entered discreetly, trying to contain the emotion that was already forming, a knot in his throat. For some magical moments he wasn't recognized, blending into the small crowd, his eyes fixed on the fragile figure seated on the stage, one who had once been an imposing and energetic presence in the classroom. Principal Amihan approached the microphone and announced with a choked voice that a very special former student had returned to pay tribute to his former teacher. A murmur of excitement ran through the environment as Manny slowly walked down the central corridor. When Manny finally took the stage, Imelda's reaction was one of pure astonishment. Her tired eyes widened, and her wrinkled hands covered her trembling mouth as silent tears began to roll down her time-marked cheeks. She tried to stand up, but her fragile legs faltered. Manny hurried toward her, respectfully kneeling before her, taking her hands in his, the hands that had once corrected his notebooks now being held by the hands that had knocked out world champions. The entire auditorium fell into a reverent silence, witnessing that moment of reconnection between the great national hero and the humble architect of his character. For long minutes, no words were exchanged between them, only glances that communicated decades of shared history. Imelda gently touched Manny's face, as if to confirm that he wasn't an apparition, a dream of her tired mind. The boxer bowed his head, closing his eyes as he felt the familiar touch that had so often stroked his head. When, as a boy, he managed to solve a difficult math problem or read a particularly challenging paragraph. In the silence of that auditorium, two souls reconnected, transcending fame, time, and circumstance, in a moment of pure gratitude that made each person present reflect on the teachers who had marked their own lives. After the initial moment of reunion, Manny stood up and addressed the audience with visible emotion. Without using the microphone, he shared stories of how Teacher Reyes had transformed his life at crucial moments. He told about the day she intercepted a letter in which he announced his withdrawal from school and how she visited his home that same night, talking with his mother Dionysia for hours, finding together a solution so that he could continue studying despite the extreme financial difficulties. He recalled how she had organized a small collection among the other teachers to buy his first running shoes, encouraging his athletic talent that would later be fundamental in boxing. The audience listened in respectful silence, many with tears in their eyes, as Manny revealed unknown aspects of his journey. He narrated how, years later, already at the beginning of his boxing career, he received a letter from Imelda congratulating him on his first significant victory. The letter contained a simple note: "Always remember to fight with your heart, not just with your fists." Those words had become his mantra in the most difficult moments inside and outside the rings. Manny confessed that he carried a photo of Teacher Reyes's class in his luggage on all international trips, as a reminder of his origins and values. While he spoke, discreet assistants organized an improvised exhibition at the back of the auditorium, a collection of photographs, newspaper clippings, and objects that documented not only Pacquiao's extraordinary career, but also Teacher Reyes' tireless dedication over 4 decades educating children from poor families. Among the items, a preserved school notebook of Manny's stood out, with careful corrections in red and encouraging comments in the margins, written by Imelda's firm hand. There were also letters never sent that she had written to her famous student, over the years, kept out of insecurity or humility, but preserved as treasures. The most emotional moment came when Manny officially announced the creation of the Imelda Reyes Educational Foundation with an initial fund of 20 million Philippine pesos intended to provide complete scholarships for talented children from low-income families across the country. The first unit would be built right there, adjacent to Saavedra Elementary School, with modern facilities and well-paid teachers. Upon hearing the announcement, Imelda covered her face with her hands, unable to contain the emotion in the face of that unexpected honor. When she finally managed to speak, her fragile but firm voice echoed through the auditorium. She asked only that the foundation ensure that no child would need to choose between studying and helping support their family. The dilemma that had almost robbed little Manny of his future decades ago. In the weeks following the emotional reunion, Teacher Imelda's life was completely transformed. She was transferred to a new residence in a quiet neighborhood of General Santos, an accessible and comfortable house with a small garden where she could cultivate the orchids she had always loved. Her niece Ligaya and little Datu moved in with her, forming the family nucleus that the retired teacher valued so much. More importantly, Imelda received the complete medical treatment she had long needed: the cataract surgery that restored clarity to her eyes, the advanced cardiac treatment that gave her new vitality, and the arthritis therapy that significantly reduced her chronic pain. Meanwhile, the school underwent a surprising transformation. Construction teams worked diligently, erecting a new building adjacent to the old one, with libraries, science laboratories, and computer rooms. The students watched in amazement at the metamorphosis of their humble institution. The news of Pacquiao's initiative inspired other successful Filipinos to contribute to the project, transforming it into a national movement to value public education. Local businessmen offered paid internships for older students, and universities in the capital established preferential scholarship programs for Saavedra school graduates. The deepest impact, however, manifested in the renewed respect for the teaching profession that spread throughout the community. Teachers who were previously seen only as poorly paid employees began to receive recognition for their fundamental role in the formation of citizens. The story of the reunion between Manny and Imelda, widely publicized by the national media, provoked discussions about the need to value educators as true agents of social transformation. In a country where figures from sports and entertainment have always dominated the popular imagination, a new type of celebrity emerged: the dedicated teacher who, with limited resources, shaped the future of the nation. For Imelda, the greatest joy did not come from the material benefits she had received, but from the opportunity to actively participate in the planning of the foundation that bore her name. Despite her advanced age, she attended weekly meetings, contributing her vast experience to the development of inclusive educational methodologies. On one of these occasions, she met former students who had become teachers inspired by her example, forming a chain of vocations that spanned generations. Mrs. Reyes, who had always lived modestly and taught her students to value knowledge above material possessions, was now becoming a national symbol of how a dedicated educator can change the destiny not only of an individual, but of an entire community. Time passed, and the seed planted in that emotional reunion blossomed into a robust tree of social transformation. 6 months after the initial visit, Manny Pacquiao returned to General Santos for the official inauguration of the Imelda Reyes Educational Center. The event, unlike the first intimate meeting, gained national proportions, with the presence of authorities, celebrities, and, most importantly, hundreds of teachers from all over the Philippine archipelago. At the center of the stage, a visibly healthier and radiant Imelda cut the inaugural ribbon alongside her former student, now her partner in a shared mission of transformation through education. The impressive facilities of the new center included not only modern classrooms, but also a complete food program for students, ensuring that no child would need to study hungry as little Manny had in the past. A special section of the complex housed a continuing education center for teachers, offering training, pedagogical resources, and even psychological support for public school educators. In the main library, a permanent exhibition told the story of Imelda and Manny, not as a celebrity narrative, but as a testimony to the transformative power of education and the teacher-student relationship. The innovative model of the foundation quickly spread to other provinces of the Philippines, with branches being inaugurated in rural areas and underserved urban areas. What had begun as a personal tribute from a grateful student was transforming into a national movement for the valorization of education. Politicians from different spectrums began to include significant educational reforms in their platforms, inspired by the positive repercussions of the project. Multinational companies established partnerships with the foundation, creating internship and first employment programs for talented young people from low-income communities. On the eve of the first anniversary of the reunion that had changed so many lives, Imelda received at her home a special envelope delivered by a discreet messenger. Inside, she found a handwritten letter from Manny, accompanied by a recent photo of him with his own family. In the letter, the champion thanked once again for the teachings that transcended the school curriculum and shared a personal reflection. In all his achievements in the rings, in business, and in politics, he had never felt such deep satisfaction as when seeing the impact of the foundation on the lives of Filipino children. At the end of the message, a sincere promise. Dear teacher, your legacy will live not only through this foundation, but through every life it touches. As you taught me so many years ago, true victory is not in winning titles for oneself, but in opening paths for others to win theirs. This will always be our most important fight. Imelda fell asleep that night with the letter on her chest and a serene smile on her lips, knowing that her life dedicated to teaching had produced fruits that would nourish future generations. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to our channel.